Welcome to the first episode of the From Wound to Wisdom podcast. I'm very grateful and excited to be here with Schneider, an independent mentor for conscious human development. And I would love to hear how you would describe your work in your own words.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Well, my work, wow. I've been doing this work for over 20 years full time. So every time someone asks me to describe what I actually do, it's not very easy because it's a lot actually. But to summarize it, my intention is always to guide people back to themselves. And my highest priority is not to make them dependent on me or someone else, but to help them learn that they have to take responsibility for their own healing. And I'm nothing more than a guide and just someone who walks beside them and gives them the tools they need in order to heal.
Mm, mm. And what do you think, like, how can people actually benefit the most for themselves when they come to people like you?
That's an interesting question. From my perspective, you have to get to a point where you're really ready, where you feel that the way you have been living until now is just not working. You're not happy, you're not fulfilled, you're suffering, you're struggling, you're fighting an internal war, you're facing a lot of fears. You have to get to that point where you realize this is not how I want to live.
Mm,
And I'm ready to change things. So what no one else can do for you is, we're not here to change your life, and I'm not here to do the job for you. So me, myself, of course, I went through a lot of suffering too. And that's very important, because if I didn't, I wouldn't know what it feels like, and I wouldn't know the necessary steps
mm.
from the suffering into abundance and just pure joy and peace and. But yeah, that's everybody who wants to work with me has to be ready to change certain aspects in their life.
Mm,
Otherwise, it won't work, because you can't stay the same and leave everything the same and expect change to happen. That's a
mhm.
contradiction. That doesn't work.
Yeah, I think like one part like where I went wrong was I started assuming like trusting that everything is possible, like anything that I can possibly think of. And the first thing that came to mind was, oh, now that I know that anything is possible, that means I can stay in the environment that was like really unhealthy for me. And I was basically like pushing myself to be resilient enough to stay healthy in an environment that makes me sick, opposed to realizing that if anything is possible, do I really want to settle for something that makes me incredibly unhappy? I really do not. And now it's really, and that is like where I felt, okay, now my faith is really tested. Because am I ready and willing to let go of what does not serve me anymore? Although the other thing is not already here, but just trusting the feeling that I have within.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think especially like because I've been working with you for a long time, I think where I stood like in my own way was a lot because I was still trying to find truth outside of me. And like I did I think I did depend in a way on you because I was not like ready to trust myself just yet. How do you think, because it's so like challenging to navigate through what your fears tell you and what your intuition tells you. How do you support people in like connecting to their intuition when they are might not be there yet where they can distinguish their fears from their intuition.
Hmm. Um, what you just said is very dense, like a very multi-layered, a lot of information. So I'm gonna try to, which is amazing. I'm gonna try to kind of answer all of it in a way, also the questions you didn't ask. um, yeah, you said something very important. Nobody else holds the answers. So a good guide and a good healer, a good mentor holds space for as long as necessary so people can remember that they themselves hold the answers. They have them inside them. So, but they also need to feel safe enough to go soul searching and go face the wounds and their own demons and shadows. So back to your question how I do that is I'm I'm just being myself in a very authentic way. And I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal. It's like I'm the healer and you're my client and I know everything and I'm going to show you every single step you have to do. And I'm going to give you the answers and all of that. That's not what I do because that's just not how it's supposed to be. I am, through my authenticity, I think, and also showing my vulnerability and just showing myself as being human because that's what I am. The fact that I see energies and then I can see things a lot of people can't see doesn't make me less human. I'm still human. I have feelings. I had my challenges. So I can very much relate to what they're going through. And that gives them a feeling of security. They can feel secure and they can relax. They can take their masks down off and just show themselves really in all their layers, also with the things they're not proud of. That's the first step. And then I hold space for them. So, like, for them being in this security, they can just like let go and all the emotions come up, and I just hold space for them. And your question of how I guide them to the discernment between intuition and fear, that's quite a way. That doesn't happen in a moment or like in after one or two sessions. That's a process because a lot of people really doubt themselves so much that they can't tell anymore whether the feeling they have in them is intuition or fear. Something that helps people a lot to distinguish between the two is intuition feels expanding, like it makes you wide and it's usually calm. And fear is the opposite. It's very constrictive. Like you have this tightness in your body, and it's usually there's a certain urgency.
Mm.
It's like, I have to do this now because if I don't, then worst
Mm.
case scenario, right? Or just fears coming up. So that's something that helps a lot. Mm.
Mm. Yeah, for sure, I agree. I think for me, it was so much easier to recognize what fear feels like because I can just feel all my energy coming up and being here. And then, like, I can feel that I'm forcing something. And then I know that I'm not in my power at the moment, or this decision does not come from from like the full awareness of the power that I have, because that is like where you get to relax when you realize how powerful you are as a human. And I think that is how you influenced me the most without really doing much, because you, just like you described, you are simply yourself and you're authentic. And that is so, it like brings you directly where you feel uncomfortable or where you feel unsafe to be yourself, because you are in the space where it is completely safe to be yourself. And then you just meet the wall that you have built yourself, and like the limitation that you set for yourself that does not allow to do that. Yeah.
Right. You just reminded me of something I wanted to say. Is it okay if I say that now? I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
absolutely.
interrupt. Um, Also, something I wrote a blog recently on my website that I like a lot, actually, myself, because it's something people usually don't talk about. And it's like a mentor or a healer is not supposed to be liked all the time. It's not our job to constantly embrace and pet and just comfort. And that's not what our job is. Our job is to mirror in a way and to speak or talk about things that are usually people don't talk about, and to put the finger where the deep wounds are.
Mm,
And that's not a pleasant, of course you do it in a loving way, and your
mm,
intention is love always. It's not because you want to hurt someone, but sometimes you have to point certain things out that are painful. And sometimes also you have to go on a certain distance, or like distance yourself and say, hey, that's your responsibility. I'm not here to save you. I'm
mm,
not here to comfort you in order to avoid going through the pain. I hope that
mm.
makes sense when I describe it that way. And that's something a lot, in my opinion, a lot of healers and mentors don't understand. Like, you have to be okay with not being liked sometimes.
Mm.
And also, a lot of healers can't handle that. So that's just part of the good work, in my opinion.
Yes, 100%. I think it is like in German we have this saying, right? Like the client is king. And it's basically because you pay for something or because you contribute to someone else getting rich, basically, allows you like to, or makes them responsible to be always agreeable. And like just to keep agree, like no matter what you say, they are just here to empower whatever you give them.
Mhm.
And I think that was definitely such an interesting ride with you for me because I got triggered a whole lot. And I love it that whenever I texted you a question, always the questions that I received an answer shortly after through other ways, you never reply to them. You only reply to the questions where I actually needed an answer. And when there's no answer, then I know, okay, it's gonna come elsewhere. And that's just so fascinating. And I think like where I really appreciate you, given that I have met you after I experienced spiritual abuse, where it was all about like we needed to tell him everything. What we think, what we believe. We were even told like what to remember. He took influence like on how we perceive our past and everything. And then I just had this immense contrast, and I think like that was actually what allowed me to trust you because you were just not having that. You were not having that I showed up and like used you or like basically replaced him with you. But I was just forced to step back into my own authority. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm glad you led the talk to that direction, because that's a topic people usually don't talk about, because the people who went through spiritual abuse are most of the time deeply ashamed and feel kind of stupid that they fell for it, that they didn't see it, so they don't talk about it. And it's I'm just deeply grateful you do, because it's so important. And it's not about victimizing people who went through that experience. That's not what it's about. It's they do need support, because there's when you go to a certain, like, I don't know how do you want to call someone like this guy? What would you call it?
Hmm. I think he was someone like deeply troubled himself. And that's why he basically created an environment that mirrored that by troubling others. but also feeling in power through having that kind of influence on other people.
Right. Yeah, you just said the most important word, in my opinion, is power. It's people that make other people depending on them, like what you experienced, are always people that are deeply, deeply wounded and traumatized. And that's not an excuse for what they do. I'm just explaining what is happening. And then instead of being strong enough to go through their own healing, they oftentimes go like into kind of a superiority complex. Like they think they're chosen and they're better and they're special and they are allowed to have power over others because they are like less than they are and they don't see everything, but they do. And so they abuse power. And a lot of times they think they're doing something good.
Mm.
Sometimes they know what they're doing. So it's like pure manipulation, conscious one, but not always. But yeah, it's I've worked with a lot of people that went through spiritual abuse, and it takes a long time and a lot of work to regain that trust
Mm.
in themselves. Because when you go to a person like this, you are already in a pretty insecure place. So you
Mm.
need guidance. And then what happens, it makes it a lot worse, right? Because they lead you away from yourself, like you said, and away from your intuition. So that just deepens everything, and I mean in a bad way, and makes everything a lot worse. So then when they come to me, I had a client once, and in the first session, I asked him, "Do you trust me?" After like 5 minutes of talking, and he's like, "No," and I'm like, "Good, then we can work."
Mm.
Because if he said yes, I would say, "You know me for 5 minutes, and you
Mm.
already trust me, so that's we have to wait a little bit longer until you're ready to work."
Mm.
So that kind of, I think that says a lot, because he was at a point where he realized, I'm not going to trust that easily again, which is a good thing. I'm going to give myself time and observe what this person does and trust my feeling of whether this feels off or not. So this needs time.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so crazy because in spiritual abuse, they basically like create this imbalance because they put themselves on a pedestal. They either put you also on a pedestal. For me, it definitely like he really started out with like, oh, we're the chosen ones. And then it shifted into, oh, actually, you messed up big time in previous lives, but you're still chosen in the sense of that his grace is basically like his love is what, and him giving me that opportunity to make up for my sins is like his graciousness, and that I should be like, it was really that complete shift where you can't possibly meet him eye to eye anymore. And then at the same time, then I meet someone like you who is incredibly like centered in her own power, but I am not just like aware of my own power just yet, and it still gives like this illusion of, oh, she's so powerful and I'm not, but it's actually like a lack of awareness rather than that there is an actual imbalance.
And that's exactly why it's so important in my position to give the answers back. So when
Mm.
someone asks me, and I get that a lot, not anymore so much. I have the reputation of not making people depending on me. But when they go like, "Hey, what should I do? Should I whatever like go for this relationship or not, or should I take this job or not? What do you think?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Well, how should I know? It's you. So you just take your time. You feel into it. You will know." Just I explain them how they can feel into their intuition and stuff, but it's theirs to decide. And I think it's a big, big mistake to give them the answer. You're
Mm.
like, "Yeah, I think I would, I mean, do it." Because it's not on me to decide. it's on them to decide, and I can only help them how they can like come back to themselves and feel what is right for them. But
Mm,
in spiritual views, the agenda is always the same, always the same. Does no matter who it is. It's always at the beginning. They tell you you're the chosen one too, like you're something special. You're supposed to be with them and like create a new world or save the world or whatever. And then after that, that feeds, nourishes and feeds the ego, right? And when you're in a
mm,
vulnerable place and you don't have a very high opinion of yourself, and someone tells you you're chosen, that's like, "Oh, finally, I know what I'm here for. Finally, I know who I am. Finally, I'm seen and recognized." So they build you up and you feel great at the beginning. And then it starts, right? Then piece by piece, they start blaming you for not doing the right thing, not being holy or sacred enough, not being devoted enough, not surrendering enough. And they keep telling you what you should do. And then they ask you not to be in touch anymore with your family, your friends, they like isolate you, and they make you more and more depending, and you lose contact to yourself completely. And then at some point, that's also a very common like step in this process of actually owning someone, is then they start draining your financial reserves. Like they go like, hey, I sacrificed to come here and save the world, and it's your task to make it possible for me to live here by financing me, just because I'm here and just because I'm saving you and the world. And wow, that's bad. I think when you abuse someone on a soul level, on a spiritual level, besides already abusing them emotionally and physically a lot of times and mentally, that's like one of the really worst things you can do.
mm, mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's just so tragic because it's them feeling, well, I wonder like whether there are some people who actually know of their power and still choose to do it, but the ones who are not aware of their power are just, it's almost like they're aware of your power though, and they're going to use it to manifest and like create the world they want for themselves, but through you, which is just so incredible. Like we recently talked about like giving and receiving, and that there is a way of life where you can give and in the same moment you receive. Because when, for example, like when I express appreciation, it can like look from the outside that I'm giving something, but really I'm also giving something to myself because that is the kind of human that I want to be. So in that same moment, like I receive, and then there is the difference when you start like to force things where you give and you expect something specific in return from the outside world. And that's like where you put it so beautifully, bleed power, because you give energy, but you don't receive anything back from your own energy because you're dependent on someone else for it.
Yeah, right. And you said something so important that leads me to basically a topic that is widespread, not only amongst people that went through spiritual abuse. That's like a general thing, general issue. It's like we didn't learn growing up most of the time how to appreciate ourselves and love ourselves deeply, unconditionally. So that leads to a certain lack inside of us, right? We are constantly, most people are constantly looking for other people to fill that lack, that inner lack they feel constantly 24/7. It's like something's missing, something's missing, something's missing all the time. It's like a constant feeling they don't even realize anymore that it's there, because it's always there and has been there since they were a child. So they think it's kind of normal. And they try to fill this hole with all kinds of stuff, right? With things, with entertainment, with other people's love and appreciation, with showing their body in certain ways on social media or whatever. It's just they trying to fill this hole and nothing works
Mhm.
until you realize I can't get this from outside. It just doesn't work. It works short term. It can make you feel it's like a drug. You get it, you feel so amazing, and after a couple of hours or days, it's gone, and then you're in the same emptiness again. So it's an inside job, and nothing else, and no one else can do that for you. And I think that's a very important thing to hear.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think like for me, it was one of the biggest game changers that I only received a couple of days ago was to understand that because I had like these amazing experiences and I was really uplifted by them. And then I was by myself again, and I could feel that part of me like longed to relive these experiences. But it was not because I received something from them. It was because I decided and told my system you only get to create this feeling, this sense of peace and bliss when other people are around, when you feel that they see you for who you are. And then it was really just about me giving myself permission again that I get to create this feeling regardless of circumstances.
Yep. And it's funny when you talk, you automatically lead me to like the next point. It's really interesting. So what you just said inspired me. I just remembered I was invited to a festival once, like a shamanic festival. And usually I always say no to events like this. It's just not my thing. I see a lot of things going on there that I don't agree with. So I just stay out of it, right? Although I haven't been working the way I worked for my entire life almost, I just always stayed out of there. But I said yes because it was a good friend of mine and it was a good experience. I was needed there, whatever. I just went. Where I'm going there is what I experienced there and what I have the feeling that happens on most of those festivals. And a lot of people will not like what I'm going to say now, but I'm okay with that. Is what you just said. There's nothing wrong at all with community and giving each other love and understanding each other and celebrating each other. That's just amazing. But what is important is the intention behind it. Like, why am I really doing this? And that's a question most people don't ask themselves. Like, they get together, there's a couple of days of oh, community and hugging and just I don't even know how to put that into words. It's like celebrating each other and it's amazing, but what is missing most of the time in my opinion is the inner work. Like, although there's sweat lodges and dances and drinking ayahuasca on the dance floor and stuff, which I deeply disagree with, all those things, there's not real work done. And then they go home, and then this feeling lasts for a couple of days. And oh, it was amazing again, like every year, and was just wow. And, but then they fall into a hole, whether they want to admit it or not. But that's what usually happens because then they're back in their lives. They're like alone again and misunderstood or whatever. And it's just like, wow, okay, now I'm back in my shitty life. I don't like it, but that's just how it is. Now I'm just gonna push through until the next festival where I can take MDMA or whatever I want to take and just dance away my worries and then go back into my old life. That's why I'm avoiding uh, those events, because real if you want real healing, you have to face this inner emptiness. There's no way around it. And to face the inner emptiness, you would have to be brave enough to be alone for a lot of times, like just you and yourself staring at the wall. No breath work, no meditation, no music, no drumming, no nothing. Just sit there
Mm.
and be yourself. Wow. And I can tell a lot of people hearing this are like, some of them will say, oh yeah, that's easy. Well, do it. It's
Mm.
not. And the other will go like, oh no, that's a nightmare. I would never do that. I mean, it takes a lot of courage because you have no distraction. Even breath work is amazing,
Mm.
but it can be a distraction. from
Mm,
the emptiness. And this emptiness that is in us is not bad. It's
mm,
not evil. It's where everything, where the seed starts growing, right?
mhm,
But in order to feel this, you have to find peace with the emptiness instead
mm,
of distracting yourself not for not feel to not to feel it, right? That's not, it just scares people too much usually.
mm.
So
Yeah.
that's like a heart from my heart. That's an advice to everyone listening. Just dare to be alone
Mm,
and face the emptiness, because that's where real healing begins.
mm. Yeah, this reminds me like of my relationship to faith as well, where I felt when I have faith and live it, that means that the sun is shining out of my ass 24/7. And it is simply not. And it took me a while to come to the realization that because I have my faith and because I trust so deeply that I'm protected and guided, that actually allows me to feel anything because I know it does not create anything bad or nothing bad will happen, nothing bad will come from it. It's simply there and it is safe to feel it. And that just takes, I don't know, it took me a while to get there for sure. And I
Wow.
think this reminds me like of the question that I asked you, right? Between like the distinguishment of intuition and fear. And I think in a way, what was crazy for me it was to realize that I'm safe in doing the work with you to make mistakes. That it's not because then I start to become independent because I don't always have to know the answer before I do something because I understand that it's safe to make mistakes and it is safe to try something and that I get to have a choice in every moment, be like, ah, that's not it.
Right, because you learn from your own experience, right?
Mm,
You're like your
yeah.
own teacher in the end.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, you said something so important, and I gotta say something to it now before I forget about the sun shining out of your ass 24/7. That led me to the light and love and darkness topic which I talk about a lot, right? You know that. And I just want to say that once again, and I'm going to say it a lot of times more probably, that darkness is not a bad thing. That is so important for people to understand. It's
Mm,
like everybody's focusing on the light and they think darkness is bad and evil. It's not. It's like when you look at the yin yang, that's something most people know. There's darkness in light and light in darkness, and it both it's a part of the whole. If you try to take the darkness out or suppress it or not being aware of it, not focusing, and only focus on the light, this part is missing. And then that creates personalities that are just like cut off from here down, like the root chakra and everything that goes into grandmother and mother earth and into this darkness where the soil is, or where the seed starts growing and stuff. And they're only like up here, and everything is only heart chakra and third eye and crown chakra, and everything down there is just like not there. They don't know because they don't know how that feels like when you're whole. But it's a big huge issue. Like,
mm,
we have to, as a collective also, we have to find peace with our own darkness and our shadows and our demons, and then we can find peace with the collective darkness and the collective shadows and demons and everything we manifested out here that we are dealing and struggling with, right? So there's no external force, evil force pushing that onto us. We made this possible by suppressing our shadows and our demons.
mm,
And integration is not about fighting against it and winning. Integrating something means acknowledging it, being grateful for it, because they're teachers. Everything dark, every demon, every low frequency energy is a teacher. It's
mm,
here to teach you. It's not here to destroy you. So once we understand that and we are grateful for it, we can integrate it with love. You can say, thank you for being here because you taught me what love is, for example, or you taught me what light is.
Mm.
So that's such an important thing to talk about.
Incredibly. And I think like especially when, when you talk in a bit more of a basic and like more common language to people and you ask them whether they believe in a higher power or in a God, often people respond with, well, what God would allow all the suffering here? Well, I kind of think like, would you like to have a God who does not allow it and therefore does not allow you to be free in the choice that you have? So in a way, darkness can be very uncomfortable, but at the same time, it gives us a choice. If we only ever could do the right thing, why be here at all? And so it's this, yeah, I think in that sense, light, only light kind of turns dark because you're not free anymore.
Right.
Mm. Yeah. And something that we had a talk after I experienced spiritual abuse that I want to mention because you asked me, or you expressed that you found it like so impressive that I was still open to spirituality. And I said, if I was not, life would not make sense anymore. Because if what is possible through spiritual abuse was only an illusion and it was fake and whatnot, then I was really just stupid. So, in a way, I had to come to terms with that there is more to life than what we see in order to be able to reconnect to myself and life again, because otherwise I simply could not have. And so I just want to express for the people who experience something like that. I hope that you trust yourself enough that you were not stupid because you could feel the truth that there is more to life than what you maybe experienced up until then. But that does not necessarily free you from misunderstanding it or misinterpreting it. Because I definitely went through that also after having experienced spiritual abuse, where I had understood so many truths, but I felt like because I create my own world, I do have a say in what happens around me, instead of understanding that I don't own the tree that I'm looking at, but I own how I see it and how I perceive it. And it takes a while until this power of choosing a perspective truly sinks in because it is far more powerful than it seems.
Absolutely. And in the end, no matter what you go through, even when it's like heartbreak,
Mm.
um, or just any kind of difficulty in life, what we have as human beings is the choice of how we want to look at it. Just what you just said. And that's a very, very powerful place to be because you can choose what it is.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
of course, it happened. That's like a fact, right? But you can choose how you look at it and what it is for you, and whether it makes sense or not, or whether it teaches you something or not. That's a choice.
Mm.
And that's so much power. And I think everybody can choose freely, right? You can
Mm.
choose that it doesn't make sense and didn't teach you anything, but or the opposite. So the question is, what serves you more?
Mm.
What is better for you? Like, is it better when does it help you grow and be happy and find open your heart again and just be like whole, to look at it in a way that it helped you grow and that it shaped you in a way, you know, that helped you become who you are today and or not. So
Mm,
it's a choice, and it's proven, and that's interesting also in quantum physics, that there's only the now, right? So the past is over, the future is not there here yet, and I'm here. That's the only reality there is the now, me sitting here with my perception and consciousness and all that. So what I think about my past kind of creates my past because it doesn't exist anymore.
mm,
So when I think of it like, oh, I was abused, also like sexual abuse, for example. Um, and that's why it just broke me, and I will be never able to fix that. And yeah, that's it. I'm just going to be feeling like shit for the rest of my life. That's okay. That's a choice, but it determines the past. When I look at it in a way, I went through abuse as a teenager. I know how it is. So when I look at it and I go, I'm so grateful for it. And that's not bypassing, I mean it. I'm so grateful for it because it taught me how to love myself. It taught me healthy boundaries that are
mm,
unshakable. I learned so much from there. So I choose, it's empowering. I choose that it was good for me and that's because I say this and because I look at it that way, it is.
mm,
You know
mm,
what I mean? Like it changes the past on depending on how you look at it. But it people have to be willing to step out of the victimhood. And victimhood helps a lot. It doesn't, but it feels that way because you don't have to take responsibility for the now. The wound is not your responsibility, like not your fault, but the healing is your responsibility, right?
mm,
So as long as I stay in the victim space, I don't have to do anything because I'm the victim. It just happened to me.
mm,
Poor me. I pity myself for the rest of my life, and I never have to take responsibility again.
mm,
And that's a very it's the opposite of empowerment. It's the opposite of power. It's just being the victim. And
mm,
if someone's not ready to leave this place, there's nothing you can do from the outside.
mm,
You have to wait until the suffering gets so big and so hard that they actually realize that they have to change
mm,
things. And then I can help.
mm. Yeah, I would like to highlight something that you said about like, looking back on it and being like, okay, this was an empowering experience. Because I definitely had these moments and like these waves crashing over me of deep, deep gratitude for the less pleasant experiences that I made. And in a way, immediately guilt followed because I was like, oh my God, how dare I be grateful for the harm that I caused and the pain that I caused? Does this mean that I am, in general, grateful for this kind of pain happening in the world? And that's, for me, that's not it. It is not about glorifying these actions that are almost unspeakable, but simply understanding that this, for some reason, something in my system went wrong in the way that I saw myself, that allowed it to find myself in an environment where actions like that take place. But it was the kind of experience, and it was only as terrible and only as painful as it took me to have reflected back to me that I have the power to alchemize it. And I don't meet myself in the experience or in what happened to me or through me, but in how I decided to see it. And yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because it can sound a lot like a glorification of pain, and it is not that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Mhm.
Mm, yeah. Okay, so on that note, I know of a project that you're soon launching. Can you
Yep.
tell me more about it?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, that's quite a project. We've been working on that for a month now, and it's going to be launched on 5th of February. It's called the Seven Keys, and it's an online video course, and I called it Foundations for Fulfilled Living. So I designed it in a way that it's not only for like spiritual people, but just like anyone who wants to have a fulfilled life.
Mm.
And the seven keys are like seven key aspects everybody carries inside. And when they're activated and open and conscious, fulfillment just happens naturally.
Mm.
So yeah, they, people can work on their selves at their own pace without me being present all the time. I guide them through every step, and it just helps them reconnect to their intuition and find clarity and awareness of their own situation, why everything is the way it is, and the emotional flow, to release old wounds, and just like everything they need in order
Mm.
to
Wow.
find home in themselves again
Mm.
and just live in an independent and fulfilled way.
Mm.
So yeah, it's quite a thing, and a lot of love and time and energy that flew into that project, and I'm very excited when it's like done and we can launch it.
Mm.
I'm gonna be just it's just very happy, and also I think I'm gonna need a short break after that. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it, and I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I'm so grateful that you do something like that because I genuinely think your work is so incredibly precious. And I love that in the description that you have just given, the essence of your work kind of comes through because you talked about the seven keys and them being activated, and then that abundance just naturally happens. And I love that approach that you have because you're not so much about, oh, we need to look into what's unpleasant and like what is uncomfortable, but rather like strengthen what is really comfortable to you and where you feel at home and where you feel safe, which then naturally leads to the relationship to the unpleasant things changing and shifting. And yeah, that is just super impressive and where you keep taking me by surprise whenever this comes up. Yeah.
It, it's so amazing listening to you. Seriously, it's like you're so right, because you can also get stuck in shadow work.
Mm.
Like I see that so much. Like people get stuck in it and they just can't stop, can't stop working with their shadows. And at some point, it's like, it's okay, it's done.
Mm.
It's done, just now, after you've done all this work, just start focusing on what you just said, right? What you want and all the nourishing things, and what you can affect, what you can change, and follow your passion, and the joy and stuff. So it's very important to not get stuck in the shadow work. That's also
Mm.
something that needed to be said. Mm.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Yeah, it's so funny, like this year, or well, last year, I sort of like realized that there is so much less to heal than I thought, which is obviously also kind of a grieving process because I have to come to terms with that I put myself like in this box where it was like, no, it's going to be hard and it's going to be long. And now I just realize that I keep making very similar decisions and choices to what I used to, but the perspective is completely different, and especially the intention is. It is not, oh, I avoid this out of fear. No, I look at the same thing and I'm like, I just simply know it is not for me. And I do trust that I could make it possible if I wanted to, but I really don't.
Oh, I totally know what you mean. And you know why that is a thing a lot of times? As long as you're stuck in shadow work and you refuse to go out of there, you can't take the necessary steps, because then
Mm.
you can also always say, yeah, I know, I should, this is what I should do, or that's going to be my next step, but I can't do it yet because I have to do some shadow work first. And that can take years. And you look at that, person, and you're like, well, no, actually, you could do it right now. You're ready. Everything is here. You can just go do it. But because they're scared of taking action, they just kind of hide behind the shadow work. I'm not saying
Mm.
everybody does that, but it's a pretty common thing. I see that a lot of times. And that, I know we're at the end of the podcast, but this has to be a part of it just shortly.
Mm.
Manifestation, because it links to what we were just talking about. It's the same. It's like when people think it's only about manifestation works, the universe mirrors our energy, right? And even if you're not a spiritual person, that's just how it is. Every quantum physicist knows that. So it's my energy kind of radiates to the outside, and it responds in a certain way. Like it responds to my energy, short version. So even if I'm in a state of bliss and I just sit here and I'm like incredibly happy and anything, but I do nothing else than sitting here, there's synchronicity because between the outside world, so to say, or the universe and me, and the universe and the earth, and all this is not happening because there's no flow in my actions.
Mm.
I'm just stuck in my life and just like asking for the manifestation to happen, and I have moments of bliss and joy, but in the end I'm just not moving. I'm not moving. My energy is not moving. I'm just stuck. So as long this is the case, nothing's going to change. And that's something a lot of people don't want to hear. So look, my favorite mantra is I do my best and I allow the rest to be given to me.
Mm.
So that's how I live. I do my part, and the
Mm.
rest can come to me as a gift from wherever. But I have to do my part. That because if it wasn't that way, we wouldn't all what we just talked about would be irrelevant because there would be no learning process, there would be no growth, there would be no finding peace between, darkness and light. I mean, like harmony between dark and light and all that would just not exist. So we are here to grow and to find back to ourselves again. So the actions are necessary. So while you practice this energetic state of bliss and love and gratefulness, do the necessary steps.
Mm.
That's just so important.
Very much so, very much so. I also feel like we can get like kind of trapped right in the rat race where, the most successful people, they have worked so hard to like get there. So I need to work hard to get there. But I think something really so deeply humbling about the way that I experience life is everything outside of me, and also that I get to be here, is already a gift. But everything outside of me is not a necessity, it is truly a privilege. And it is not, I think, because the universe just does it out of love. It's not to be mean or anything, but I think the universe is just so, so, so happy if it is allowed to give us something and we can see it for the gift that it is. And therefore, it is kind of like I'm shifting I don't know, just my perspective in the sense of that I don't deserve this and then like I have to earn it, but that I get to simply receive whatever comes my way. And I can see it because I have learned to see value and even like dark times and dark experiences. I truly can see everything as a gift. And strangely enough, and not so strangely enough, many things that I have dreamed of, but not even like dare to consciously dream of, start to come into my life as a gift, truly. Yeah.
Right. That's so wonderful to hear. I think I would summarize it like this, like energy is always in movement
Mm.
naturally, and the universe is always in movement, always in flow. So are we. But as soon as we are stressed and fearful and like in refusal, everything tightens up and our own energy flow slows down massively.
Mm.
and it's like it doesn't resonate with the flow of the energy in the universe, so to say. It's not easy to explain that, and that creates like a disharmony.
Mm.
So it's very important to be as relaxed as possible and surrender and have trust. And
Mm.
within this relaxed state, follow the intuition and do the necessary steps. Not a
Mm.
forced, I have to work my ass off for it, like my grandmother always said, like, everything has to be hard work. You have to do work. That's true. Nothing is being created without doing, with doing in nothing. That's just,
Mm.
but it should be with joy, effortless, and because you're following your intuition.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. So true. Okay, I think we're going to wrap this up. It was, despite like the short format, I feel it was very dense and we brushed along like many different important topics. Is there a last thing that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to thank you a lot because it's such a pleasure to listen to and to talk to you like every single time. I appreciate you a lot. So it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for this, really. And yeah, last thing, I think I would just say for everyone listening, I can walk beside you and I can guide you, but the healing happens the moment you choose yourself.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you so much for your time and your presence.
Thank you.